Hey guys, what's going on? This is Cody Steck. I just wanted to share 3 quick thoughts about why Coinbase may not be the best investment for you to make today. I am not going to be purchasing Coinbase, and I want to share a couple of reasons why and just kind of share some of the thoughts that are coming out of my head and where I'm going to place that money that I would put into that into a different stock, and perhaps why you should too. Now, I'm not saying that this is the right or the wrong decision for you. You have to make that decision for yourself. But for me, I just wanted to share some counter argument points. It seems like the general consensus out there with Coinbase and their direct listing that they've got going on today is very bullish. Everybody wants to get in. It is the most hyped stock, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. You know, sometimes when I see that, I look at it and I say, you know what, this is probably going to be overheated, and there might not be an opportunity for me to get in at a reasonable valuation. So with that said, I want to talk about 3 things here today. Number 1, I want to talk about volatility. You know, volatility with Coinbase and with Bitcoin and just, cryptocurrency in general is extremely high. I think that Coinbase being tied so directly to Bitcoin and to Ethereum and all these altcoins, I think that if there's a crash in that market, Coinbase will go down with it, you know, because a lot of their revenue does come from the transactional revenue that Coinbase is currently receiving. So if volatility in Bitcoin increases and, you know, Bitcoin continues to go up, then sure, Coinbase will probably go up. But if it goes down, Coinbase is going to come down with it. You know, being tied so closely to that actual the value of those cryptocurrencies, you know, just makes me a little bit hesitant because it's tied directly to that and how much activity they're getting on, on their platform because of that. So that's one thing that really kind of worries me with Coinbase very first. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that with Coinbase, you know, other platforms could easily come in and brokerages can easily take out Coinbase. You know, what I mean by that is, look, you've already got other platforms out there. You've got Binance, you've got Kraken, you've got BlockFi, you've got Voyager, all of these different platforms that can do basically the same thing as what Coinbase is doing. Now, Coinbase does have that first mover advantage. Obviously, they've been in the game for a long time, and a lot of people have gotten into cryptocurrency because Coinbase has made it the easiest way to get into this world, right? They make it easy, they make it understandable. It's easy to sign up. You link your account and you can buy crypto right away. So that's one thing that I think is Coinbase is doing right. You know, they've obviously got that advantage, and they're obviously pretty far ahead compared to some of these other platforms when it comes to the amount of users that they have and the amount of transactional volume that they're actually doing. So I think that's something that's really important. However, you know, I'm a little bit concerned because I think some of these other platforms out there, these other exchanges could come into the game very easily and start to take market share from Coinbase. And a great example of this is Voyager Digital, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here closer to the end of the video. But Voyager Digital is basically doing a lot of the same things that Coinbase is doing. They made it very easy. Their platform is great. Their app is super easy to use. It reminds me a lot of Robinhood, actually. So I think that Voyager is doing a lot of the right things. Plus, they're paying interest on the crypto that you hold within their platform. Now, I know that Coinbase could easily replicate this process as well, and you know, Coinbase could jump into this game, and you know, that's going to take away Voyager's massive advantage in that realm as well. I know that Voyager and BlockFi are kind of neck and neck with that, but I do believe that Coinbase could do the same thing. However, you know, they're not quite there on that level that Voyager is. I think Voyager has kind of gone that way. They've got the VGX token, and they've done some other things that are kind of setting them apart from what Coinbase is doing. Now, I still think that Coinbase is the biggest player. I think that they will continue to be the biggest player in this space, and that's why they're going to be at such a massive valuation. I think if they have a valuation, if their share price comes in at roughly $400 per share, this is going to give them over $100 billion market cap, which is just insane. You know, looking at other companies, you've got Square, which is like $120 billion. You've got PayPal at $300 billion. I mean, you've got these other massive companies that are on equivalent levels as what Coinbase is doing, but Coinbase is already starting out with such a huge valuation. You know, it's going to have to grow into that, in my own opinion. You know, I think it's going to need a lot of growth to happen in the future years in order for this to continue growing, and it's going to need that high earnings multiple in order to justify the valuation that we're seeing. So what I want to get here or get at with this is, going back to the kind of the brokerages and the platforms, one thing that I really see that really worries me is, what if Fidelity or Schwab's comes out and says, hey, you can buy Bitcoin on our platform. You log into your Fidelity account, buy BTC, and away you go, right? They're going to hold it. They're going to transact it for you. They're going to, basically take care of everything, right? Think about how many institutions and boomers out there are going to want to go with that platform, right? Just because they trust Fidelity or they trust Schwab. They've been using them for years and years, and they've got, dozens generations or decades of history with a track record of being able to protect funds and, be regulated and kind of go through this whole process of having a very safe platform, right? That's a big part when you're investing your money. You want to make sure it's safe. Now, there are obviously a lot of institutions that purchase their Bitcoin or crypto in general with Coinbase, and I think they will continue to do so because, but they're still trusting Coinbase to hold that money and keep it safe, right? Some of those institutions are going to keep it on the platform. Some will pull it off all the way, maybe put it into cold storage or something. But they're pulling it out of those exchanges and taking it out of circulation. So as this happens, they're still trusting Coinbase to do that. And I'm just a little bit worried, hey, when does that day come where Fidelity or Schwab comes out and says, hey, you can now trade this on our platform? A lot of institutions may go over to those platforms just because they already have the account set up. That's what their clients are used to using, especially because a lot of the money in the stock market in general is with older clients, right? They built up that net worth, they built up that nest egg, and that's where most of the money is at. Those are the people that are buying. So I think it's going to be pertinent for that, but I also think there's going to be a lot of institutions that are in the same boat as well, whether it's insurance companies or trust funds or pension funds, stuff like that. I think a lot of those would probably rather trust Fidelity or Schwab as opposed to Coinbase. So just something to think about there. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is long-term growth, right? This is something that I always think about when it comes down to just strictly, trying to think abstract about the company and the stock and the share price and what the overall vision is with it, right? I don't try to get so involved with the technicals or with the fundamentals or with the business itself. I just try to look at it and say, okay, what does the long-term growth actually look like for this company? I think Coinbase can continue to grow so long as Bitcoin and Ethereum and these other altcoins continue to grow with it. I think they're also going to find other ways to produce revenue, and I think they're also going to be in a good spot to be able to, bring that net income to the bottom line, or that revenue to the bottom line, to produce net income and be able to, have some really, really good numbers. But if they come in at $100 billion market cap, where does that put them in order to double up, right? They need to go from $100 billion to $200 billion, which is extremely difficult, right? I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult that is for any company to do that. There's very, very few companies in the world who have been able to do that type of jump. $100 billion to $200 billion is incredibly difficult. Now, what if they come in at 120 billion or 150 billion during this direct listing? For them to double up, they got to go to 240, 260, $300 billion, which is just insane. There's very, very few companies that are over $300 billion market cap in today's market. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be more in the future, but what are the chances of that? I think that they're fairly low, right? And so this is one reason why I am a little bit more hesitant. I'm not going to be jumping into this right away, because when I look at this and I say, hey, look, I'm still a young guy. I'm 28. I'm looking to grow for the future. I'm willing to hang on to these stocks for longer if I need to. I've got the power of growth and time on my side because I don't need this money until later on in life. I'm not going to plan to use it right now. I can plan to use it later on. So I'm going to look at this money and say, if I need to hold on for the long term, that's what's important to me, but I'd rather go with a company that has a bigger growth potential. This is the exact reason why I'm going with Voyager myself. I've already got a massive amount of Voyager or money in Voyager. I've got over $20,000, which is a pretty large chunk of my general portfolio right now that I've got invested into Voyager, because I think they've got a better chance of 3, 4, 5xing over the next couple of years. I think there's a really good chance they could 3 to 5x by the end of this year. They're currently trading at roughly a $3.1 billion market cap, and I could easily see them going from 10 to 15 billion by the end of this year. So looking at that long-term growth, I think that's something that is super important for me. I look at that and I say, okay, do you want to have the potentially higher risk? I'm just kind of throwing out some counter arguments here, and feel free to drop a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. I'm just throwing out these counter arguments. Do you want the potentially higher risk play, depending on how you look at it, by going with Coinbase, because they have a lot more downside, right? They have a lot of downside. They could easily go from 100 billion to 80 billion and you lose 20% right there. For Voyager, they could do the same thing, right? A lot of these other companies could do the same thing, but I think that it's going to be way easier justified for Coinbase to go from 100 billion to, let's say, 80 billion rather than Voyager going down itself. So I look at that and say, okay, that could be a potential risk that is not being accounted for. That could be an additional risk that some people need to take into account. I also think, what are the chances that it actually doubles up? What's that risk to reward, right? How often or how likely is it going to be that this stock will go from 100 billion to 200 billion versus going with Voyager, which is in a similar space, much smaller. They're still building, they're still getting that traction, still trying to get to that place. I think they're much more focused on the retail trader, which is exciting for me, exciting for a lot of other people. What are the chances that they go from 3 billion to 6 billion or 3 billion to 15 billion? I think that that's a much more likely situation especially with how the cryptocurrency world is going. And so for me, I look at that and I say, that's almost the safer play, but there's also more reward on it, you know? And so I know I'm not taking into account everything that goes into this, you know, the numbers and the taxes and the income and the revenue and the users and where the revenue is coming from. There's obviously a lot of things that are not being accounted for here. This is just kind of some thoughts, you know, around the company, around the stock market, around the psychology of investing, and some things that maybe you should consider as well. So for now, I'm not jumping into Coinbase. Who knows? Maybe in a couple weeks, couple months, we'll see where it goes. We'll see if it settles down. We'll see if it drops. Then there might be a chance for me to jump in at a lower price. You know, if it did go under 400, 350, 300 a share, you know, then sure, I would definitely jump in. I think that's going to be really cheap. I don't think that's going to happen. You know, obviously that'd be a really big value play, but I don't see that happening. But for me, I'm not jumping into Coinbase right away. I've already got a massive amount of money, at least relative to my portfolio, in Voyager Digital, and I'm going to stick with that. I think that there's going to be I think that as Coinbase goes up, as people jump into Coinbase and say, hey, this is really good, and you know, as you know, that tide rises, I think that's also going to bring up Voyager as well, and Voyager is going to see a lot of that same growth just because Coinbase is going up, let alone just the fact that they've got a super strong balance sheet themselves. They're growing like crazy. Their growth is amazing, and they've got a really good platform that's easy to use. And I think that the interest that they pay, although it's very high right now and will probably drop in the future, I think that's going to be a big draw for a lot of retail traders to move their money from Coinbase over to Voyager, which, by the way, I did just make a video on that, so make sure to check it out. It'll be up here on the screen. Check out how to move your money from Coinbase over to Voyager. Get your free money after you download the Voyager app. If you trade $100 worth of Bitcoin, you're going to get $25 for free using the link in the description or the pinned comment below. And with all that being said, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.